Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we are discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 12, Paradise Lost. Sisko and Odo rush to unravel a conspiracy within Starfleet before time runs out.
What did you think?
One word you could use to describe this is underwhelming.
Yeah, one of my notes here, maybe midway through, says I'm kind of bored.
I like that they tried to make it all about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There was no big space battle or anything. It was just a culmination of fears. That's a good idea, but they clearly ran out of cash. They did. They actually did run out of cash. If you didn't guess from watching it, it says on the wiki they had budget problems because Way of the Warrior at the start was expensive, and then this is another two-parter with a lot of stuff, so it was also expensive, which is why the last third of the episode is just Sisko and Leighton in his office answering phone calls.
Talking about how they can't leave the room?
Can't even look out the window.
No, that costs extra.
Well, it's a green screen. They have to put in a famous structure in the background.
Yeah, like when you're in Paris, you always have to see the Eiffel Tower.
Yes, they built 4 Eiffel Towers, one at each corner of Paris, so no matter what window you look out of, you can see one.
It's very convenient for shooting in Paris.
The Golden Gate Bridge as well, wasn't it?
It was a bridge. I didn't even bother looking. I do want to mention, though, that the public transportation still looks terrible in the future of San Francisco.
Is it better than it is now? I'm assuming it's not very good at present.
The train they showed was moving so slowly. Probably the speed it does now. I think it's around 70 miles per hour, which is so slow. There are trains that go, 250 miles per hour? Anyway.
Oh, there's ones that go faster than that. I think maglev trains go to a phenomenal speed.
Right. The point being, it's terribly outdated technology, and it doesn't look much better in this vision of San Francisco.
Well, 70 in the context of the size of the United States is laughably slow. But why would anyone use public transport anyway?
For fun.
They have transporters, so maybe the train you saw was like a museum piece.
Yeah.
They get on it and laugh at 21st century public transport.
Look how slow this is.
Unbelievable. You can't get anywhere with this.
It's like a baby's toy. Also, why would they even build in San Francisco? All they ever talk about is how San Francisco will be flattened one day, and there are several fault lines here. Maybe they solve plate tectonics in the future, and it's not a concern, but I keep thinking about that whenever they mention Starfleet in San Francisco.
Well, plate tectonics is not a problem that needs a solution. It's a property of what happens to the planet.
Yeah.
You can't just reinforce the fault lines.
Just a bit of cement.
Just a bit, yeah. Maybe San Francisco did break off and fall in the ocean, and they just built a new San Francisco a bit further back.
That would be cool if in this it separated and it's San Francisco Island or something now. But I think it would just sink.
From the weight of all the filth?
Yes.
I don't know. I've never been to San Francisco. So apart from geographic stuff, we should probably talk about the actual plot and goings on. It's an intense conspiracy.
I wanted to go off on another tangent.
what was the other tangent?
So there's an incredible coincidence in this episode. This episode is about treason and patriotism and paranoia. And one of the names that Sisko mentions during the scene about a security breach, involving a security breach, is Snowden. Edward Snowden, of course, is responsible for the leaked classified information from the NSA. It was so weird that he said that name. I don't know what the chances are for someone to have that surname in the US, but I don't think it's that high.
It's not a common name, but okay, the names he actually read were from Catch-22.
Ah, okay.
So I guess it's a different coincidence that Snowden has a name that's used in Catch-22. But it stuck out to me when he said Snowden.
I even
It's like Edward
went
Snowden?
back. Yeah. I had to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah, he should have phoned that guy. He'd have spilled the beans.
It would stand out in any episode, I think, but it just had to be this episode involving these topics.
It is a coincidence. They're not that forward-thinking.
No, they predicted it. They knew.
It was them all along.
They planted this information so it could be discovered 20 years later, to the advantage of no one.
Oh, yes, that's the point of that.
I suppose we should talk about the episode.
Yeah, I'm trying to formulate my thoughts on it. It was good to have all the conspiracies, but I don't think it made a lot of sense.
Why not?
It's hard to say. Okay, Starfleet, the guy from Starfleet wanted to seize control of Earth, and isn't Starfleet like a part of the Federation anyway?
That's the impression I had.
So couldn't the Federation just say, "Hey, stop that"?
I don't know. What's the difference?
Starfleet is like the Navy, and the Federation is the government of like 100 or 200 planets or something.
Okay.
Okay, well, anyway, aside from the politics being a bit vague, they didn't. It's odd that they struggled to pin stuff on Leighton when he started just being overtly villainous.
I kept waiting for him to twirl a mustache.
It's not a twirling mustache. It's actually painted on.
You just need to believe.
It's a CGI effect.
He twirls an invisible mustache.
Sisko goes to the president of the Federation, Mr. Insincere, and says, "I think Leighton is a really bad guy. We're going to get the dirt on him. Don't worry." Then Leighton dismisses Sisko. Isn't that a dead giveaway? And then Sisko is a shapeshifter all of a sudden, which shouldn't matter if everything he said is valid.
Right, it doesn't erase evidence.
Yeah, I'm assuming the president said, "I'm not just going to take your word for it. I want cold hard facts."
Unless you're a changeling, because I'm a raging racist.
Okay, that's the impression I got. Even then, the way they get the facts is a bit... So Red Squad are a bunch of dudes, and they were the ones that knocked out the power grid.
Yes.
So they left the Earth-wide sort of power attack to a bunch of kids.
Yes.
And they thought these kids will definitely never tell anyone.
Yes.
And then the first kid Sisko finds immediately spills his guts about everything. I mean,
shame that didn't work out.
Sisko did. He buttered him up really well. And then someone typed up a report about it, and Sisko found the report. I don't know.
All of those mistakes or missteps make me wonder why he thought there was no way he could be pinned for the things he was doing.
seemingly everyone in Starfleet was in on the conspiracy. I don't think we saw any Starfleet officer that wasn't part of the ruse. So you probably thought, oh, it doesn't matter if people find out because everyone is in on this.
That's fair.
And then all that Red Squad stuff doesn't even matter because Cisco works out that Leighton had got someone to probe the wormhole, jab it so it opens. And then they find that guy and bring him over on the Defiant. They don't use the cloaking device.
It's the perfect plan.
Okay, I mean, what I've just done is describe a bunch of stuff that happened with a tone of slight confusion in my voice. I guess my point is, a lot of things happened that didn't really gel together into a plot that made perfect sense.
It didn't bother me as much, I think, because it made sense to the characters, and I got overall what they were going for. I'm supposed to be intrigued by the conspiracy.
I'm not saying it didn't make sense in context or that it wasn't a logical sequence of things. And indeed, I guess stories shouldn't just be formulaic and all fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. But at the same time, all the plot just seemed to march along based on mistakes.
Hey man, we're all human, unless we're changelings pretending to be human.
Yes, O'Brien made a Changeling O'Brien appearance.
That was very entertaining.
It was the highlight of the episode, I think. It was so simple as well.
The show keeps coming up with excuses to have these actors play different roles, and I love when they do it. It never really feels all that contrived, and it's always entertaining because, as we've said before, these are all great actors, and it's fun when they get to stretch their acting muscles.
Well, if you've got strong actors, you should throw weird stuff at them, I guess. The conspiracy stuff was seemingly fairly free of shapeshifter involvement.
Right, there was a disconnect there. He's talking about changelings and how much trouble they can cause, but then everything was on infighting and people working against themselves.
Well, presumably the changelings could have assumed key roles at certain times just to keep things moving.
I guess. Yeah, they could have facilitated that, but it still seemed like I'll bring up Lincoln because I bring him up all the time. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And we had that here.
The shapeshifters showed up in the previous episode as well, in the first part. Again, pointlessly. So apparently they're just mucking about. They're not really doing anything.
They're just having a bit of fun.
Having a laugh.
They're announcing, hey, we could mess up things for you, but you are doing a fabulous job of it already, so we'll just back off.
Wait for everyone to stop punching each other in the head and then just swoop in and get the last guy. The one thing I don't get is how they faked the blood test for Cisco.
They don't even bother to explain it because they don't know how they did it either.
But it implied that changelings were involved with Leighton's plan somehow. Like that Benteen was a changeling or something.
Well, they could get one of those changeling rocks that we saw in whatever season and mix that in with Cisco's blood.
Season 1, the Vortex?
Yes, that one.
Mix that with Cisco's... What? Okay, that thing was like a random artifact from the Gamma Quadrant. But...
Last time we had a faked blood test, they showed the vials, so we were aware of the switcheroo, but here, they don't even give any hint how this was accomplished.
Yeah, and last time it was a changeling doing it. So, the changeling goo obviously came from that changeling. This time they get changeling goo out of thin air or something that appears like changeling goo, and it looked the real deal. So unless they saw Odo change, they probably, how would they even know what to make it look like?
Wikipedia.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. The Defiant and the Lakota shot each other a bit in a space battle many have described as underwhelming, to return to that word.
That's this episode's word of the episode.
It didn't make a lot of sense that the Defiant didn't win better. They've been bigging that up as basically a gunship.
A warship, yeah.
But it can't even blow up a regular vessel from Starfleet.
There were some throwaway lines about being upgraded.
Okay, but okay, well, does that mean they're sending out ships with rubbish defensive capabilities that are less than the best they can provide?
Yes.
Okay, no wonder they're getting blown up all the time.
This is why they can't defeat the Dominion.
But the Defiance destroyed tons of Jem'Hadar ships. Probably about 10 at this point. They've got to be tougher than Starfleet ships, generally. Like, just a random Starfleet Excelsior class vessel.
So what you're saying is Worf is a terrible commander and this is all his fault.
No, he was good. He said, right, let's fight.
That was a cool moment.
Yeah, they had a Klingon in control. Of course he's going to fight them.
Yeah, he's not going to scamper away.
Well, he probably would if he could complete the mission, but he's not going to back down in such circumstances, and he's probably going to win. Well, I don't know. I think it pretty much depends on the ships.
There was a small scene that made me chuckle. So, Odo says, "I'll be in the next room if you need me." And I could be mistaken, but I think the last time Odo said that was right before Sisko's body was taken over by a killer, and no one came into the room to rescue him.
Oh, yes, in Facets. I'll be in the next room doing nothing, not listening.
Yeah, I won't help you. I just want you to know I'm in there.
I'll just leave you with the man leading a conspiracy to seize control of the planet, and I'll just leave the only person who has all the facts in the same room as him, knowing that this man is prepared to lie, cheat, and kill his way to victory.
And if he starts strangling you, good luck. You're on your own.
I think you just sort of reminded me of something which bugs me about a lot of Star Trek, but it doesn't really bug me. It's just noticeable sometimes how overly dramatic it is.
Oh, yeah, it takes itself very seriously. Unless it doesn't.
Thanks for that tautology.
Where they go for the, like, all-out comedy.
In this case, it was when Sisko and Odo were talking to Jar Shinyo, the president, and they were trying to make a case against Leighton, and they were finishing each other's sentences with this dramatic speech about how far power should go, etc. It's not. It just comes off as really over the top. It's unnatural because this sort of speech would have to be prepared in advance and rehearsed.
When they go for it, they really go for it. They don't really know how to strike that balance a lot of times.
I don't mind clever bits of dialogue, especially stuff that's just conversational, but more perfect than a real conversation would be. But it just gets too dramatic sometimes, too Shakespearean or whatever. Do you have a quote of the show, of the words of conspiracy and wisdom?
I have a quote that's a quote of a quote.
Well, then I should be able to work out what it is.
There comes a time in every man's life when he must stop thinking and start doing.
Is that a quote of a quote?
Well, Cisco is quoting his dad when he says it.
Oh, right. I think it was like some famous saying or something. I believe that was Oscar Wilde.
The great philosopher, Cisco's dad.
We haven't talked much about him. He was in this episode.
That's true.
He gave Cisco some advice which was relevant and helpful to his predicament, which is never what happens with dads.
Well, you're in a position where you have life experience and you want to impart that.
Yeah, but I don't think he'd have much more life experience than Cisco. I mean, all he said was stop thinking and just do something. You're taking ages. But Cisco would already know that.
Yeah, that's
not
Cisco's
a kid.
governing philosophy. He stopped thinking a long time ago, and he never started back up again.
He's not that bad.
He's all action. All action, all the time.
I just felt it was odd that his dad's advice was so well received when it wasn't that insightful. Like, you should maybe take action on your problems. Oh, thanks. I hadn't realized that these incredibly serious problems required immediate action.
He could be humoring him.
Oh, look at me. I'm Cisco. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Thanks, Dad.
That's actually a more realistic father-son conversation.
They keep pushing these great family connections the Cisco's have, and I want them to argue more.
It's a family show thing. It's the aliens that are not perfect. Humans are dandy.
The one argument they had in this two-parter didn't even make sense. He was mad at him. He was mad at Cisco for doing his job, for being suspicious and trying to carry out orders.
And then he was okay with it later. Well, whatever. Earth is safe. We can go on now knowing that the Dominion did not conquer Earth yet, but kind of have some guys there having a laugh.
And Cisco was relieved of a job he wasn't even qualified to have anyway.
Oh, it's funny when Leighton says he wasn't even interested in command. He wanted to be a ship engineer. We've actually discussed previously that he seems way too good at engineering. I'm sure now that Earth is safe, they can go on to make other places safe in the next episode.
Such as Deep Space Nine?
It's totally safe. It's not like someone
100%.
dies every week. Alright, let's go.
Okay.
Alright then.